All right, let's dive in. We're about to pull back the curtain on a time when laughter was, believe it or not, one of the most dangerous weapons in society. We're talking about 18th century England, where playwrights used the stage not just for a good time, but to attack the very foundations of the social order. It's a fascinating and surprisingly sharp-edged period of theater history.
So just think about this for a second. What if a night out at the theater did more than just make you laugh? What if it held up a giant, unflattering mirror to the world you lived in and made you question everything you just took for granted? Well, that's exactly what the most daring playwrights of the Restoration era were up to.
You see, the comedies from this time, they weren't just lighthearted fluff. Oh no, they were sharp, they were satirical, and they were deeply, deeply critical. The stage really became this battleground of ideas, reflecting all the anxiety society was grappling with about marriage, money, and power.
And this style of theater has a name. It's called Restoration Comedy, or sometimes the Comedy of Manners. And you know what? The name really says it all. These plays were totally obsessed with the manners, or more often the lack of manners, of the aristocracy. They used this incredibly clever, witty dialogue and some pretty scandalous plot lines to expose the hypocrisy that was just bubbling right under the surface of high society.
Now this is where it gets really juicy. Look at the tension here. On one side, you've got the strict official rules of society. Marriage was basically a business contract, women had very few rights, and where you were born pretty much decided your entire life. But then, you look at what was happening on stage. It was a completely different reality. Unhappy marriages were all-out war zones, and you had these fiercely intelligent female characters actually fighting for their own independence. It was radical stuff.
So who were the masterminds behind these theatrical takedowns? Well, two of the absolute giants were Sir John Vanbrugh and George Farquhar. And these guys weren't just writers, they were social critics who knew exactly which buttons to push to get a reaction.
Let's start with Sir John Vanbrugh. This guy was a true Renaissance man of his time. He was a huge, often controversial figure in London's cultural scene, and he was known for having a wit as sharp as his architectural designs.
And this is what makes him so unbelievably cool. By day, he was a famous architect, designing these massive, iconic buildings like Blenheim Palace. These are symbols of aristocratic power, of stability. But by night, as a playwright, he was doing the exact opposite. He was basically taking a sledgehammer to the social rules that the very same aristocracy held so dear. What a contrast, right? And then you've got George Farquhar. Now, if Vanbrugh's satire was like a sharp jab, Farquhar's was a little different. He was famous for his really deep understanding of human emotion. He could mix laugh-out-loud funny moments with some genuinely thoughtful ideas about love and loyalty, which made his characters feel incredibly real and relatable.
Okay, to see just how provocative this all could get, let's zoom in on one of Vanbrugh's most famous and controversial plays, The Provoked Wife. I mean, with a title like that, you know you're in for a wild ride.
So the whole story is about a character named Lady Brute, and trust me, that name is no accident. She is trapped in this miserable marriage to the totally awful Sir John Brute, who's neglectful and abusive. The entire play is just her struggle to find some scrap of happiness and control in a world that's designed to give her none.
And this chart just lays it all out, doesn't it? You have Lady Brute, who is simply looking for love and independence. Then there's her husband, Sir John, who's all about indulgence and control. And into this mess walks Heartfree, a potential suitor who represents what a relationship based on real affection could look like. The play basically forces the audience to ask, who's the real villain here? Is it the woman considering an affair or the society that trapped her in the first place?
But, this wasn't a one-off. This kind of critique was a running theme. Vanbrugh and Farquhar were constantly using the stage to dissect the moral hypocrisies of their time. Let's take a quick look at how this plays out in their other major works.
Okay, so take Vanbrugh's The Relapse. Here, he just dives headfirst into the very shaky idea of marriage. The play is hilarious, but it's also asking some really pointed questions about whether anyone can truly stay faithful. It's all about that battle between what society says you should do and what you secretly, deep down, really want to do.
Then, in A Journey to London, he turns that satirical eye onto the big city itself. He absolutely skewers the ridiculous fashions, the silly customs, and the desperate social climbing that defined London life. He sets it all against this idea of a simpler country life, though of course, being Vanbrugh, he finds plenty of hypocrisy there too.
And just to show you the range here, Farquhar's The Inconstant Lady takes a much more emotional approach to these same ideas. It doesn't just poke fun at infidelity for a cheap laugh, it actually gets into the real heartbreak and turmoil that betrayal causes. It shows the very real human cost of all these superficial social games.
So, what's the takeaway from all these shocking plots and witty takedowns? What's the lasting impact? I mean, why are we still talking about these plays more than 300 years later?
Well, here's the bottom line. Vanbrugh and Farquhar basically perfected a formula that is still so powerful today. They proved that comedy could be way more than just an escape. By mixing that biting humor with serious social commentary, they used witty dialogue to pick apart the most complex parts of our lives. Love, morality, marriage. They left a huge mark on English theater and influenced generations of playwrights who came after them.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thought. The stage has always been a place to challenge how things are. These playwrights used their wit to question the rules of the 18th century. So it makes you wonder, right? Who are the rebels of today? Who are the comedians, the writers, the performers, holding up that mirror to our society and asking us to laugh at the absurd things we just take for